But to take out Hezbollah, you need to take out Iran. If you want to take, they want to take Iran. Iran is a jewel, right? But to take Iran, you need to destabilize and weaken Russia, right? So you see these things that are going on.
Hey all, myself and Tom Bodrovics of Palisades Gold Radio recorded this interview with Michael Yon back in November in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, in Doug Casey's house. And it's astonishing now, as I finally get to release it, how prophetic it is and how it predicted a lot of what has currently happened. So it's an amazing discussion, and you saw the splash screen. Michael covers everything with incredible professional knowledge on how the world works. So enjoy.
What we're looking at here is a complete changing of the global order. It's quite obvious that it's unfolding. People have been, there actually have been globalists since the beginning, right? Various religions and whatnot who have wanted to rule the world, right? So the idea of globalism, there's absolutely zero new about it, right? But now we have actually reached a point where somebody can actually be global, right? You can actually have structures that, as you know, can control us everywhere we go with the new computer systems and the photography that basically control all of our movements, right? And so what I see with Trump, he's clearly, by the way, a Zionist. He's open about it, doesn't hide it. So I mean, that's him talking. You know what I mean? And so and he's going to do what's in the best interest of the Zionists. That doesn't mean Israel, and that doesn't mean Jews. Zionists are not Jews. Zionists are Zionists, right? And there are Zionist Christians and Zionist atheists and Zionist Jews and probably Zionist Hindus. I don't know, actually. Well, not to go off on that tangent, but the Zionists clearly want to do things such as take the Suez Canal and expand the area known as Israel, right? They clearly, if you want to take that area, you need to take out Iran. If you want to take out Iran, you need to take out Hamas in Gaza, right? And there's a lot of energy off the coast there, which is very valuable. And you need to take out, anyway, because it's back door, right? And next you need to take out Hezbollah, right? But to take out Hezbollah, you need to take out Iran. If you want to take, they want to take Iran. Iran is a jewel, right? But to take Iran, you need to destabilize and weaken Russia, right? So you see these things that are going on. This is part of a bigger play. There's a lot of things going on here, and it's not about Jews versus Muslims or Christians. It's about other things. That's part of it, but there's other parts as well. It's about routes. For instance, the Indo-European corridor between Mumbai and going through UAE, through Saudi, through Jordan, and up through Israel, through Gaza, right, and Haifa, and that sort of thing. There's a lot more going on than meets the eye. And so what you'll see, another thing that the globalists, let's say the globalists, or the they, who are the they, right? It's an amalgam of interest, right? You've got the Soros crowd and the Gates crowd. There's many different crowds, right? It's a who's who in the zoo, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody actually runs the jungle. There's no chief that's actually in charge. It's competing oligarchs, right? So you got Russian oligarchs, you got Chinese, right? You got Americans of different flavors, Europeans, of course, of different flavors. And so these people are both reinforcing each other and cooperating, and they're frenemies as well. They're, or even outright enemies, right? And so you've got a battle of oligarchs going on right now. And some of these oligarchs clearly wish to reduce the population on planet Earth. They're very clear about it. They wish to deindustrialize Europe. They're very clear about it, and they're succeeding at this point, right? You can see that Europe, for instance, taking down water infrastructure around parts of Europe and the United States, taking down dams, taking down other dikes and water barriers and that sort of thing. A lot of the things that are kind of invisible to most people, because how would you see the big picture? You might say, hey, why are they removing that dike over there? I probably have a reason, Yeah, but if you look at the big map, they do have a reason. It's to get rid of you, right? And if you look at, for instance, the WEF website, you'll see that they have, art renditions of Europe with beavers around and the deer jumping over the log, and wolves hunting and that sort of course, wolves have been released all over parts of Europe now, for instance, Netherlands. Germany. There's wolves everywhere now, killing people's horses, killing people's cattle. This is all this is a multi-spectrum war. There's all kinds of weapons that are unfolding and being used. One, of course, the highest form, of course, is information war, right? And that information war is being used to reduce the food supply, right, in many different ways. For instance, information war was used to close Groningen gas field in Netherlands. The biggest gas field in Europe was closed. No kinetics whatsoever, just information war. I went there in advance to Groningen, warning that I thought that they were going to close it. I didn't know, of course, but it looked like they were probably going to succeed. That's why I went there. And they did. Total information war kill. That's absolutely vital. And you know, before they closed it, a lot of people were saying, "Why are you saying they may close Groningen?" And you know, I don't know if they will, but they did. And you know, people would point out that Groningen is the biggest it's the biggest gas field in Europe. And I'm like, that's why, right? You get it, right? Likewise with Nord Stream. We predicted that in writing multiple times in advance and told millions of people in interviews, we think something's going to happen to Nord Stream. And again, who would do something to Nord Stream? Of course, I didn't know they were going to blow it up. I thought they might hit it with software or something. But anyway, bottom line is they did it, right?
Quick interlude here. Great conversation, but trust me, it gets even better. And we get to talk about gold and so many other topics that are crucial in this world. And a quick reference, there's a link down below to the guys in Pure Gold UK. I believe, Michael believes, Doug Casey believes, and all of my macroeconomic and hedge fund type people worldwide, my network, are all convinced, absolutely, that particularly for people with higher net worth, protecting that net worth by investment in physical metal, gold, and particularly silver now, the way the markets are going, is really, really important. So not financial advice, but I'd suggest you talk to the guys in Pure Gold, link to a free consultation down below. They know their stuff, and look into protecting you and your family's wealth going forward in very uncertain times. And now back to the interview.
And so these affect that natural gas affects nitrogenous fertilizer supplies, right? By the way, BASF is fed by Nord Stream, and they've got operations here in Argentina. I point to the big map over there of Argentina, which you can't see on the screen. But the bottom line is, what we're talking about. We're seeing these oligarchical systems, some of them anyway, that are setting conditions for their success, which is reduction of global population. So they're reducing our resilience right now. Like if this were a fight, they're kicking our legs. They're kicking our legs. They're chopping us down. We're still standing. We're more resilient than a lot of people, I think, would have imagined, but they're kicking our legs, right? So bit by bit, they're burning down fertilizer, chickens, production facilities, H5N1s, avian flu, all this stuff, right? I've been tracking H5N1 for years. Because I thought at some point I have daily H5N1 updates because I just thought it would happen. So they're using all these things to reduce our resilience. And at some point, with our reduced resilience, I think we're going to see real catastrophe. But you see, for instance, this hurricane in North Carolina, which was significant. There was water let out of a dam or multiple dams without warning. Absolute devastation in North Carolina. There's still, I mean, it's really severe. And the U.S. government not helping, right? So most of the help is coming from individuals. There's very little relatively help from the U.S. government. Likewise, there was a curious flood in Dubai recently. Mm-hmm. Why? Maybe it's because they stood up against the arms, to Israel. I don't know. I do not know. But in that regard, Ireland also stood up against that, and the Zionists directly threatened Ireland and Spain, right? And Spain just had that flood, and that flood happened to be they've already reduced many of the dams and dikes and whatnot in Spain. Hundreds actually have already been taken down. Suddenly you have this, huge storm right at a key place. Now it could be coincidence, of course. We have to keep in mind. I mean, you're serious guys, and you're with serious mathematics background, right? I mean, things do happen, but they're getting awful coincidental. I would not doubt in context that we would see some weather event in Ireland or Netherlands, as an example. I mean, what a severe weather event in Netherlands could do, as you can imagine. So we met in Netherlands the first time. You don't need the briefing on what that could do to Netherlands.
One would not be shocked, really. But also Biden, I think, on the record a few years ago said, if XYZ, Nord Stream's gone. Or didn't he literally say it?
He did. 2 or 3, I want to say 3 times there were threats from the United States. Now keep in mind, there's multiple reasons why you might want to take out Nord Stream. One is the old Mackinder thing for the folks who have studied Mackinder and his world island theories, which I think do hold some water. Keeping Russia separate from Germany has been something that I think wise people would want to do for, especially England. Of course, England has always tried to keep, they'll always go after the big guy, right? I say England, then the United Kingdom, of course. City of England. Yeah, City of England. They typically go after whoever's the ascendant power. They're going to go after because they want to keep it, and I can see why, obviously, but so that's one reason would be to keep Russia separated from Germany, of course, and also because that open pipeline, Nord Stream 1 and 2, was building both economies, Germany's, and because the energy was cheaper for Germany. And as you know, energy prices, I mean, all prices go with that up or down, right? And also, so Russia was getting much more resilient with the money that they were making, and Germany the money they were saving, right? But the globalists are very clear. They want to deindustrialize Europe. So if you want to deindustrialize Europe, you're going to hit Germany, right? And if you're going to hit Germany, you want to hit Nord Stream, right? I mean, so if you're doing your Carver matrix and you're selecting targets and you're making a target package about what would you take out if you wanted to cause famines and you wanted to deindustrialize Europe, 1 and 2, Nord Stream, Groningen, and those are 2 that I went to physically and said in advance, I think they're going to do it, and they did. Now, why? I strongly think this is about creating famines. All the farmers that are being attacked everywhere across the United States, Canada, Australia, paying farmers to stop, sign the contract, you'll never farm again, that sort of stuff. Of course, farming is not something that you just start one day and you do it well, right? There's a lot of these farmers are multi-generational, so they have a lot of knowledge about their area. They know when the cricket comes out of the hole, it's time to do X, right? You know what I mean? They're both a combination of ancestral knowledge and science and art, right? So that, like the Dutch farmers, they're incredibly efficient. Why, if you're trying to reduce the amount of stickstoff, as they call it, nitrogen, in the soil, why would you go after the Dutch, the most efficient, who, you know what I mean? Obviously, it makes no sense unless you're trying to attack food supply.
And the data on that, actually, I looked into it a few years ago. It's whatever about global warming being nonsense, which it is, the data on nitrogen is absolutely absurd. It had already crested and was leveling off. It had no relevance. And then they suddenly came out and it was the biggest thing in the world. One thing that astonishes me as well.
Let me say something. For those of my viewers who don't know Ivor, he does analysis like this for like breakfast. So I mean, you have to follow him and you'll see what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, and I have a very high threshold. I things that sound conspiracy theory-ish, and if I don't find solid as a rock data, I've got a very high threshold. But on what you're discussing, it's literally at the stage now of they are rubbing our noses in it. It's that self-evident, what you're saying. Now, the normies, sadly...
You've been saying that for a long time.
Yeah, the UK strikes me. Ireland, we have all of that. But the UK is being literally deconstructed in front of our eyes. Their steel industry all taken away. Their energy industry all taken away. It's right in front of people's faces. They're deconstructing and flooding with migrants. We might talk about that as well. Mega flooding with migration. It's so frustrating that average people cannot see it because they've been indoctrinated to believe that anything of this nature by de facto is a conspiracy theory. That was great work they did over decades.
Yeah, and the whole labeling conspiracy theory, that's the whole communist, brainwashing thing.
So just to kind of circle back, Michael, one of the things that Trump really pushed before the election was this idea of ending the wars. You know, you just talked about all of this being very, very deliberate and very coordinated. So what likelihood do you think, or weight do you think ending, let's say, the conflict in Ukraine or the Israeli conflict, what weight do you put into that?
First of all, Trump he's a meat bot. He's a meat puppet, right? He's a Zionist, so he's their anointed dude, right? So that's all he is. He's a spokesman for his Zionists, right? What do they want? That's the bigger question. They want to take out Iran, for starters. And they want to have some control in Ukraine, right? So, I mean, they're pretty open about it if you just watch what they're saying and doing, right? So what will happen with the war in the Middle East based on that paradigm? I think, well, two paradigms. One is wars do tend to grow. That's their nature, right? Like fires. The nature of, often I've been correct on predicting wars because I just go by the fundamentals. When I say this war will grow and it'll grow uncontrollably, and then later people are like, well, that was genius. And I'm like, yeah, because that's what they always do. You know, it's like if I drop a pencil, this pencil will hit the floor and it will bounce, right? That's like, you know, I mean, it's so amazingly predictable. It's almost like cheating. So the war, so under that paradigm that wars tend to grow and grow unpredictably, and they tend to last longer than anybody expected. If you just bet those three things every time, you're going to get your 100 ounces of silver, you know. And so, but so there's that, and then there's the other paradigm that I'm working under now, and continue to experiment with, is that it's the Zionists running Trump, which is pretty obvious actually, and that they want to take out Iran. And if you're going to do that, again, you need to take out Hamas and Hezbollah, right? And the Houthis are throwing a little wrench into that, right? And because wars grow unpredictably, right? And that's just what they do, right? And then, of course, you need to affect Russia. So there's multiple reasons for doing this. So there's you know, it's an amalgam of reasons and a mixture of reasons as well. But I mean, there's so many different things going on. But the bottom line is the Zionists are collecting power right now, and they're collecting it very quickly. And I see Israel actually as another useful tool to them, because you got to keep in mind, the Zionists are not Jews, they're not Christians, they're not atheists, they are all those things and more, right? It's like a meta tribe. It's nothing but a power center.
And they will, I mean, essentially, they will sacrifice citizens in Israel. They don't care about any.
They did.
Except they did, and they had Israel turned into a laboratory for Pfizer and all this kind of stuff. They don't care about anyone but their own agenda.
Clearly, like October 7th, I've mentioned this before. October 7th, the attack starts, and it took them 7 to 8 hours, the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, to effectively respond, which is an entire McDonald's shift. And you know, imagine that. I'm clocking into McDonald's if they still have clocks, and you're clocking out, and now the IDF is responding, right? Listen.
Oh, when you said about the Black Hawk, you know precisely the Black Hawk response. Yeah. Maybe briefly just go through those minutes.
Oh yeah, like a QRF is a quick reaction force. I've been on many of those in the wars, right? Quick reaction force is like your basically fire department, which you're always going to have, especially in a place like Israel. So, I mean, how long would it take a fire department to respond? A fire department is a quick reaction force to fire, right? And so how long would a fire department take to respond to a huge fire that broke out at that thing, right? 10 minutes? I don't know. They would be quick, right? So, but a QRF, a cold Black Hawk, Israel has Black Hawk helicopters, right? UH-60s, right? It takes wheels up from cold helicopter 4, maybe 5 minutes to get wheels up. From cold helicopter, not hot cocked or anything like that. And so typically you'll have QRFs, they'll be sitting in rooms like this, and they're reading books or, you know, drinking coffee, and a lot of times they'll have their body armor on and that sort of thing, and they're ready to roll, right? And after their shift, they take it all off, or maybe they don't have their body armor on, but they're sitting in the room doing their stuff, right? And then beep, 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 alarm goes off, pilots are out to the aircraft, you know, and everybody's strapped in, wheels up. 5 minutes, you're gone. And those things go 180 knots. A Black Hawk will go 180 knots, right? They should have been in combat maximum 20, 30 minutes, maximum, right? It's hard to imagine it took 7 or 8 hours unless that was what's called a staked goat tactic. A staked goat is an old tactic in war. It's been used since forever. It's where, you know, you have that party there where it should not have been there, you know, that sort of thing. There's your staked goat. And then that would not be what's called a false flag. That would be a green flag attack. A false flag is when you do it under somebody else's uniform or whatever, right? A green flag is when you, like what we did to, what happened in World War II at Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor was a green flag attack. In other words, we cut off Japan's oil, we cut off their rubber, and we cut off their tin. Our Navy was sailing at Japan all the time and trying to get them to shoot at us. But Japan realized they were going to run out of fuel. So they came, I'm summarizing here, but in short, Japan had to make a decision. We either don't do a breakout fight, or we run out of gas and then they're just going to conquer us because we're going to be out of gas, right? Or we do a breakout, and we're probably going to lose, but we do a breakout. So that was a green flag. We induced them to, we provoked, we set conditions for the Japanese to attack us. We kept provoking them. They kept trying to negotiate with us. It was all in the news back then. You know, Japan desperate to attack or to negotiate was one of the headlines just before the, you know, they were trying their hardest, but we wanted them to attack, right? And then they attacked, and they were like, look at those dirty Japs, right? And the next thing you know, we got mushroom clouds, right? I mean, because this was also about oligarchical fights. It was not about anything else but money, gold, routes, that sort of thing, right?
Power structures.
Power structures, and the resources that go along with that, which is routes and resources, right? Gold.
Michael, I think to drill down a little bit into, let's say, specific examples, what are some of these attack vectors on, let's say, we can use the States as an example, but on the West more generally, for people to be able to pay attention to? What are some of those examples to be able to kind of piece this entire puzzle together?
Well, everybody watching this will have noticed that their food prices have gone up considerably, right? So your resilience is going down on many fronts. We're all being invaded. Canada is thoroughly invaded. Ireland is thoroughly invaded. United States as well. Netherlands, across the board. You go to Luxembourg, it's more than 50%. I'm not going to say migrants. By the way, let me say something about words. Words are important. Information war is the highest form of warfare, right? Words are the atomic structures of truth and lies, right? We have to stick to the accurate words, right? I mean, you can't make water out of lithium and sulfur, right? It doesn't matter how hard you try. You know what I mean? It has to be 2 hydrogens and an oxygen, right? And that's it. And 2 hydrogens and 2 oxygens is hydrogen peroxide. That doesn't work either. It has to be words used in the proper context, in the proper way. These are not migrants. This is an invasion. We are at war. It's not a crisis. I hear people all the time saying, the border crisis. We don't have a border crisis. We're being invaded. It's a war.
It's very, sorry to interrupt, but it's very specifically, basically military age males, as you pointed out in your.
It is, and these are not vaccines. They're clearly weapons, right? These are not vaccines. If we're using the word vaccine, all else that follows is false, because we started with a premise that they're vaccines. You know, I took Brett Weinstein, excellent, very smart man, took him down to the Darien Gap, and he did extremely well. He did his PhD work in the Darien Gap, actually. That man loves the jungle. So he's actually kind of fun to go out in the jungle with. He studied these tent-making bats and stuff, which is really cool. But separate from that, we're down there because we're at war. And I saw Brett on with Jordan Peterson, right? And in the beginning of their interview about the Darien, they start talking about, and I discussed with Brett at length down in the Darien, this is an invasion. The words are very important. This is not migration. This is weaponized migration, if you want to call it that far, right? Weaponized, I've got a book out, right there, that yellow book on weaponized migration. Actually, you want to pick it up? Yeah. I mean, this is an old weapon of war, right? this is an old weapon of war, weaponized migration, weapons of mass migration, written by some socialist woman, but she's very smart, unfortunately. It's weapons of mass migration, and it's been going on since, well, long before our super great grandparents were born. I mean, you know, my super great grandparents were boat people that came over from your part of the world and got shipwrecked on Bermuda in 1609, right? So they were boat people. So they were migrating and had a lot of babies, and the rest is history. So, or it's unfolding history. But the bottom line is, I took Brett down there. You know, words are atomic structures. Again, you have to pick the right words. So I was watching this interview with Brett and with Jordan Peterson, which I've been on Jordan's show a couple times. And they, at the beginning of the conversation, you can watch it. They start discussing. You can tell which direction are they going to go, invasion or migration. So they start calling it migration. Now you're going down a completely different road. So now they're talking about the history of migration. Okay, you're all else that follows will be false. This is a war. You took the migration route, and they're talking about the history of migrations. We're not talking about the history of actual combat and war and genocide, because that's the road that's the road that we're really on, right? These are two very smart men who chose, and I know them both, who chose to use the wrong word. It's a war. It's not migration. There are migrants that are mixed in there. I'm out there with them all the time, right? And then there are, no kidding, real soldiers coming through, right? For instance, you should see some of the Iranians coming through. You should see some of the Chinese coming through. They're very serious people. Some look like they're honestly actually migrants, I think would be the accurate term for some of them. But others, look what you see in Ireland. Masako Ganaha and I went to Ireland and we saw it, military-age males. Now keep in mind, a lot of the people coming in may not be soldiers then, but they're soldier material, right? Yeah. And you can use them as soldiers in different ways. And they are expendable and fungible and non-serial numbered, right? So I mean, you know, bottom line is, when they get wounded, they're out, right? There's not going to be any ongoing medical care and wheelchairs for you. You're no longer useful, so now you're fertilizing the beans, right? We're dealing with people that are that evil, obviously. Ireland now has camps all over Ireland. If you look at where the camps are, which I have maps of them that are, I mean, you look at those camps around Dublin, they are in positions to control Dublin, right?
They're strategic in their positioning. Yep. They're not just taking advantage of land that happens to be there. They're more strategically positioned.
Yep, along main roads and that sort of thing, and control routes. And you look at some of the fencing that they're putting up in Dublin and whatnot. Is that fencing there to control the migrants who are invaders, or is it there to control the Irish? Looks like it's there to control the Irish. Ireland, I think, if my gut instinct is right, mixing that with the paradigm, I think Ireland is a target for genocide. That's the way it looks to me. That's the way, I'm just looking at the playing field here, how they're lining up the pieces, they're going to kill them, right? That's what I think. But keep in mind, genocides have different faces as well. You've got sort of very soft genocides where you just don't let the Cantonese people speak Cantonese. The children have to speak Mandarin, you know. You can't learn that old history, you have to learn ours. That's the softest form of genocide, right? Where you don't even move, not many people die, that sort of thing. You know, Hong Kong and other parts of China, that sort of thing. And then there's a little bit more firm genocide where you just make people leave, right? Make them, you actually just, or you enslave them, right? You can keep them there, but you enslave them, right? And enslave their children in particular. And then another form is just go fully kinetic and kill them, right? Mm-hmm. And my guess is it'll be a combination, because, you know, when you have, my guess for Ireland is that there'll be a combination of I'm just guessing, I do not know, of course, but the way that it looks is that they're going to do some sort of very serious genocide that involves mass death. But of course, a lot of Irish are going to then, as you know, Irish never recovered from the 1845 famine that lasted longer than 1845, of course, but I've read several books on that famine. It's so consequential for world history. Those famines where you're from is they're very consequential, and your population has never recovered actually from 1845. Or What people will argue when those famines ended. Some will say 1850 or 1854. I don't know, but it kind of faded out, I guess. And
yeah, it cut it in half, and it never really came back.
Yeah.
Now our numbers are going up now, but to your point, it's mass migration that's bringing the numbers up. But
yeah, but it's not Irish.
No.
Yeah.
You went through that. I'm glad you defined that, because in your talk it was superb, and it was quite funny because I was the only Irish person there, and you were talking about these catastrophes. But it's great to break them out. There's all kinds of levels of how bad that can get, and I guess it'll be really important for people to see it coming if it gets particularly bad, and to actually take those steps. And a lot of people, I do shows in the UK, a lot of people are up and leaving the UK as well. I mean, literally, they're looking at what's happening and they're saying, I'm out of here. You know, it's
the hermit crab leaving a shell.
Yeah.
For the next hermit crab to take it. You ever seen how the hermit crabs line up and swap shells? That's what's happening.
You know, right on that point, Michael, you know, I was privy to a couple of the conversations over the week here, where people specifically asked you, because you and Masako travel so much of the world, and there were several people that asked you, you know, where's the one place we should go? What's the answer? And I thought you had one of the best perspectives on and answers to that question.
How did I answer?
Well, pretend I just asked you the question. Where do I go? Where are you going?
Actually, the people that know the least about the world are the ones who know exactly where they're going. I've noticed a lot of people will instantly say like Panama. Which is, to me, that tells me you haven't studied much. There's no way I would pick Panama. And a lot of people are doing it. And so people like Doug Casey, you know, of course, we're in his study here, who has traveled the world extensively, even more than I have. People like Doug are having a hard time figuring where the best place is. And I have as well. It's not a simple question, because we have the tyranny of knowing a lot of different components of this. But Doug narrowed it down between Thailand and I think he's been to like 150 countries. And this is my 99th that I've honestly been to, right? I don't count a little day or two, you know what I mean? But like really coming here. And he picked between Thailand and Uruguay and Argentina, right? And it's interesting because there's not just Doug, but others have narrowed it down between Thailand and the antipodes, as Doug often calls it, the opposite sides of the earth, between Thailand and here. Now, I would discount Thailand at this point, and Doug has as well, right? Now, keep in mind, I had an office in Chiang Mai. I'm very familiar with Thailand. I've been all over Thailand. If you web search my name in Thailand, you'll see me flying around with the Prime Minister and all that stuff. I was there in 2 of the coups, right? I'm very familiar with Thailand. And so, and there's a lot of positives about Thailand, but now I see that they are coming under the WEF umbrella, clearly. And you see the dope shops everywhere. About 9,400 licenses have been issued now for these. Now, I look at by the way, the dope shops differently than a lot of people. I used to look at it as I was growing up. I don't care what you do, have fun, it doesn't bother me. I guess libertarian in that view. Because I really didn't care. I mean, as long as it doesn't bother me. But now, as my education on war has progressed over the decades, you know, and I realize how much drugs are open, just like weapons of mass migration. I mean, we used them against the Indians. It was alcohol, right? And the Chinese have used opium and other things. Now, the Chinese always play the victim in the opium wars, but they've been doing opium wars themselves. Like in Thailand, they were doing that in the 50s and 60s in Taiwan. We were just over in Taiwan again recently and talking with top people there who said, you know, fentanyl is coming in now in Taiwan, right? Not Thailand, but Thailand too, but actually Taiwan. And it's coming from China. They're using it as weapons.
And this is exactly what I was kind of getting at when we're thinking about these attack vectors, right? This is being able to take, again, zooming out to take this step back to see all of these different attack vectors.
Yeah, and there are many. If you read the book Unrestricted Warfare, written by 2 Chinese colonels, very good book to read. And they go over the maybe 24 different forms of warfare, like drugs, food, of course, information warfare, the big one, kinetics, of course, political. There's many forms of migration. So they do all these sorts of things, right? And they do them elegantly in an art form, right? It's like drug warfare, as an example. Many of the Chinese who are coming through the Darien Gap, they're going up to the state of Maine in the United States, and they're growing marijuana. They're also doing the same in Oregon. They're doing the same in California and Washington State and Oklahoma, right? And these are sophisticated people. I talk with Chinese. I spent a lot of time in Asia, about 19 years, right? And about a year of that in and around China, right? So I've asked many Chinese about, I'm trying to figure out how their firmware works, right? And they have come over to the United States and are setting up their own banking systems, right? So there's parallel systems. They're coming in with a meta structure, right? So they're coming in, and you can, if you read the book Unrestricted Warfare and you look what they're doing and what I'm seeing with my eyes and what they're telling me, they're doing it. They're coming in, they're doing drug warfare. Instead of growing corn, they're growing dope. They're selling the dope to our young people, making money and putting it in their own banking system to bring more Chinese over, right? And they're infiltrating, like the Zionists, they're infiltrating our political systems. We've got Chinese with top secret clearances. You can barely understand what they're saying, right? I mean, they're looking in, working in communications departments and like embassies and whatnot, you know? You can't, it's unbelievable how deeply that they've infiltrated. So we've got, I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
Oh no, I'm just saying that one hit a button, because I personally very angry about the dope one, this marijuana. And I saw it in America years ago, and then Portland, Oregon went to hell. It's full of bums. And it's happening all across America. And I'm saying, hold on, why is there suddenly like a kind of a revolution where we all smoke dope? And I knew it was going to undermine the youth. It was going to undermine society. I knew that. And now in Ireland in the last few years, it's clear as crystal. We had the head shops came in, they were allowed for years. Then there was a lot of hullabaloo, people turning up in emergency departments, young people like kind of gone nuts, and then they shut them. But it's clear the guards, the Gardaí, the Irish police, the words down from the top, stop arresting, let them have it.
Yeah, for
the Irish police.
Americans, Gardaí is, yeah.
Yeah, but it's clear as crystal to me the last few years, and we've been affected, even my family, the schools everywhere, it's all over the place, and there's clearly an instruction from the top to the police, let it go. That's the new strategy.
Really important.
Let it go. It's amazing.
Everybody watching this has had somebody in their family who is an alcoholic or a drug addict or a hardcore gambler. And one person under your roof like that is like getting a hellfire missile through your roof. Yeah. That can mess up your whole household. Just one. You got your freedom to be your libertarian ways, but if I'm taking out your country, I'm going to use drugs, right?
And the youth.
Which,
yeah, that's right.
To one of the points that you and I discussed recently, the idea of stress and the effect on that, on your body from there, that also acts as a distraction, and, aging, it just can completely deteriorate not only your quality of life, but also your health.
You're bringing up something incredibly important. Go ahead, sir.
Oh no, it's a massive underminer of everything. It even takes, like if you take, for instance, me, I had my war and COVID and my war and all this madness, such as it is, I've had some effectiveness.
Yeah, you have.
But the family behind you is a massive part of that. Now, if you drop that missile in and you weaken the family backing and cause stress in the family, all it takes, and suddenly you're beginning to literally undermine all of this structure, and you are affecting the effectiveness of the pushback. And if you spread that across society and use the youth, you destabilize the opponent.
You have Hunter Bidens out there,
yeah,
who just
chaos,
spraying our secrets all over the world, right?
Yeah.
And selling them for whatever, probably a little crack or something. But this is very important. George Soros, openly used drugs to do this, and the weapons of mass migration. He uses these two components together. Now, right now, so Soros put huge money into this. Right now in Florida, there's something called Amendment 3, which is to make the dope legal now across Florida, right? Like they're doing in Thailand now as an example, right? And now I saw Governor DeSantis, the governor of Florida, about 2 weeks ago, saying that the dope people put like $100 million, if I'm accurate, I think that's accurate, to push the dope to get it legalized in Florida. $100 million. I was like scratching my head when he said that much. Just now, guess who's standing behind Amendment 3 to make it go through? Trump, right? That means Trump is actually with Soros. He's pushing Soros policy. It's naked. It's right in front of us, you know. But Trump has become the opium of the masses. Now, that doesn't mean I'm pro Kamala, of course, and she's out anyway. She's shit on the street. But at the same time, this is a kayfabe. They got their guy in there. Notice there was no contest in this election. She bowed out and the whole thing. And now that puts him in a position immediately to start doing Zionist policy, to start negotiating. By the way, I got a message yesterday. He may be down here in December. So Trump may be here in December. Let's see. I mean, actually, I know people that are very close to Trump, quite a few. And they reach out to me on a regular basis, right? Because they want help doing this, that, or the other on the Darien Gap. And I'm like, I'll help you for sure. But as you know, your guy is pushing drugs. I mean, your guy is pushing to increase the war in the Middle East, you know? And he never has backed off of the jab. We've got to be honest with ourselves about who this guy is. He is a meat puppet for the Zionists.
And you also mentioned in your talk, it was excellent, but you, in Argentina, the iOS, could you go through this?
IOM.
IOM, because I've sent material all the time by people, and again, Zionism it's not Jewish, it's not Christian, but if you look at the mass migration NGOs all across Europe, someone sent me a list.
Actually, let's go to HIAS, and then we can get to IOM. HIAS, Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, is one of the main engines that pushes people through the Darien Gap, right? And so they've got an office right next to, I almost rented their office that they took, but they got it before me, actually. I eat breakfast with them sometimes. I mean, it's not like they're theoretical. You know what I mean? I know what they like for breakfast. You know what I'm saying?
And geographically, just so for people who are not good with geography, just zone in Darien Gap and whereabouts it is and.
The Darien Gap is the little on the Isthmus of Panama, where Panama connects to Colombia. That's the Darien Gap because they call it the Gap because there's no roads for about 100 kilometers, right? It's hardcore jungle, right? And
it's the route up through Mexico, North America, blah, 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 yeah.
So if you can get through the Gap, then you can get anywhere in North America. Or in Central America, for that matter, in Mexico. And Mexico's on the menu, too. I tell my Mexican friends, I'm like, you think they're just passing through. They're going to take you out, buddy. You got a lot of lithium and everything else here, and they don't have any use for you except to help invade us, and then they're going to take you out. And they can do it. They can do it with many, many means, the same things that they're using on us, biological. And anyway, not to go into that. But the bottom line is Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, right? I first saw them in the Darien about 4 years ago. I was down at the end of Highway 1 in a town called Yavitsa. It's actually the end of Highway 1. And there was the Norwegian Refugee Council. There was the Red Cross. There was IOM. And then there was these guys, HIAS. I'm like, who's these HIAS guys, right? So and they were helping Migrante fill out paperwork so that they could get cedula or IDs for Panama, right? And so it was quite interesting. So I started looking into the different groups, but then I started to realize HIAS, they have more horsepower than these other guys, and HIAS, a former board member on HIAS is Alex Mayorkas. He is now our leader of Homeland Security, right? He's obviously fantastically powerful, right? So who is Alex Mayorkas? He is the child of Cuban immigrants who were both Jewish, mother and father, right? So that's why he was on the HIAS board, right? So he was a HIAS board member. And then if you go to HIAS.org, you can do it right now, HIAS.org, HAIS.org. And look, they are congratulating Mayorkas from moving from HIAS to becoming Director of Homeland Security. Now, he has been down there in the Darien. I was tipped off that he was coming to Panama City. And I thought, wow, if he's coming to Panama, he's probably going down to Darien. And so I waited at this. I was like, if he comes, I bet he'll land in helicopters right here. So I waited for 4 days and read books. And sure enough, 4 Blackhawks landed right in front of me. I'm running the video. He gets out, comes around, goes into the camp, right by the HIAS headquarters, right, like 10 meters from highest headquarters, right? The front gate of the camp from highest headquarters is like 40 meters. But when he went past it, he went right by their front door. That's how close all this is. So he came down there, Alexander Mayorkas, and increased the size of the flows to the Darien. And he did it openly. It was only he was tweeting about it, right? And I've got photos, I've got drone footage of him in the camp and photos on the ground of him in the camp, and there it is. I mean, that's our guy, you know, and he is literally invading the United States. That's why when I hear right now people like Gingrich and others are like, we're going to do tariffs against Mexico. I'm like, cease fire, Rambo. Do you even know what's going on? Unless you're working for the Zionist, you know, what you would not do is do tariffs against Mexico. Our government is the one doing it, right? Our government is the one helping IOM, the International Organization for Migration, and HIAS. The flows are coming through our government. Who controls our government? Well, APAC is quite powerful, but our government is clearly doing it, nakedly doing it, right? And yet people constantly talk about doing, sanctions against Panama. I'm like, sanctions against Panama? Panama wants to close the Darien Gap. In fact, we helped set conditions for that by showing to Panamanians how much tuberculosis is coming through. There's more tuberculosis now in Panama, which I've been warning about for some. Here it is. This is here. Screwworms and all kinds of other things, right? Dengue has increased, malaria, prevalence of malaria, especially Plasmodium falciparum, which is the worst kind. It's, you know, increased quite a lot, right? I mean, all these things. So we kept telling the Panamanians in Spanish language, hey, coming through the gap. And they turned against it. This president, who is now president, ran on a platform of closing the gap. He immediately reached out to the United States. The United States is like, nope. You know, they said, yeah, we'll help you, but they didn't do anything, right? So the bottom line is, if you want to close the gap, the first thing the United States government has to do is stop helping the invasion of the United States. And why is Trump supporting Amendment 3 in Florida? Why is he, and you know, Mr. Roger Stoner, you know, he's totally a 420 guy. When I say 420, the bottom line is it means marijuana, right? I mean, the history of it may have something to do with these high school kids having their smoked toke at 4:20 in the afternoon. But anyway, I don't know. But the bottom line is 420, if you ever see 420, you see Roger Stone, you know, posing next to a 420, you know, like a number of a hotel room or whatever, and pointing to it, smiling, you know. I mean, these guys are clearly intelligent beings, and yet they're sticking with this stuff. And they're talking about doing sanctions against Mexico when that's not going to solve it. They're coming across through Bermuda. Masako and I were in Bermuda earlier this year looking at. They're coming across Canada. We are flying them in from Colombia and Guatemala. Our government is flying them in, right? So, and you're going to sanction Mexico and pretend that did something? I mean, we can easily close the border. Okay, will Trump close the border? I'm going to help as much as I can. And if he actually closes it, people are going to believe me because they know I don't like Trump. I've never liked him, and it hasn't changed except gotten worse, right? I mean, so if I see him closing the border, just like I was with the wars, Iraq, Afghanistan, and things, you know, and the other ones I've covered, I'm going to call the ball where it lands. So if he's closing the border, I'll say it. If he's not, I'll say it. What do I think he's going to do? I think not. But I'm going to help him to close it. I'm going to help him.
Dealing and analyzing the world as it is rather than the world that you want to be.
The world that I want to be is Ronald Reagan or something like that, right? Yeah. I want somebody to come in and say, we can do it. Not only that, why am I even involved, right? I should be writing books about, you know, cannibal hunting or something, right? Which I did one time for a break, and it was quite epic. But the point is, that was a long time ago, but it was really an epic experience.
Story for another time.
Yeah. But that's what I would rather be doing. Totally. But now we've got American citizens and Irish and obviously Canadians. We all have to stand up, because if we don't, it's done.
Michael, exactly in that vein, and we've kind of touched on it a couple times in this conversation. How do you think about building resilience and the skills and, you know, even ideas that you put a lot of importance on to be able to approach what you see coming?
Well, obviously, this is a complex it's like asking for medical advice for some random, you don't know, maybe some people don't need medical advice because they're good to go. You know what I mean? So when it comes to individual resilience, that's obviously highly, contextualized, individual. In general, though, where you live is incredibly important. Mm-hmm. Number one is where you're at. If you're living in downtown Manhattan, I would be thinking about something else.
Yeah, and you talked about the radius. I think that was yourself who went through the radius or made it with another speaker about in the cities you got 3 days of food. I mean, the supply chains.
That was somebody else talking about it, but it's something that I talk about it frequently. Yeah, old knowledge was to live at least 2 days walk from a town. Now it's like a tank of gas away or whatever, which is, but there's,
that was was pointed out in Peter's talk.
But now it's actually very difficult to live that far away. I mean, it's just realistically, and being in the United States, it's really kind of not going to happen easily. You know what I mean? But where you live obviously is important. But at the end of the day, that's a defensive move. It doesn't mean you're going to stop what's happening. So eventually it will just find you, right? Because if we walk away and let the beast, I call it, take our government, I mean, it's a very powerful, we have a lot of power with this military, right? As weak as it's becoming compared to others, compared to the American citizen, I think most Americans don't realize how serious our intelligence apparatus is. I mean, it is very serious. You're not going to hide and be in the United States. It just ain't happening, right? Or here, if somebody wanted to get you, right? It's just not going to happen, right? And kinetically, you're easy to find as well, right? You have to stop it. We have to stop this beast, because otherwise we're just going defensive and letting it win. But when it comes to resilience, there are a lot of things that you can do that are obvious, like you talk about gold all the time, and I do as well, and we all do. Gold is kind of an obvious one, right? I mean, for those, interestingly, when it comes to information war, we've been brainwashed away from gold since at least the 70s in the United States, and the Japanese as well, right? I called up James Bradley, a month or two ago. He's the big Flags of Our Fathers author. He's a big gold guy, right? And I said, James, I study information war, and I'm like, at some point, either in the 30s or the 70s, I think an information war was started against Americans to, go away from gold and to save in fiat, which is obviously a little trap, right? It's a mousetrap. And he said 1973, because of course we went off of the gold standard on August 15th, 1971, right? So we went off the gold standard, Nixon, 1971, right? He said since about 1973, you're not going to, I haven't been able to audit this, but you're not going to be able to find like an MBA book or a book on finance. They started taking out gold as a primary store of wealth. They just took the extra inverted pyramid, take it out, right? And so the same in Japan. Japan used to be a big gold country. Now the average Japanese is like the average American, or even like the average Dutch, for that matter. The average Dutch, they don't seem to know. I know a lot of Dutch people, and you do too. I mean, start asking them. You'll see a lot of them are like, I never actually physically held an ounce of gold. They'll tell you that, right? And so it's interesting because you go to other countries. One of the very positive things about Thailand is they have a de facto gold standard. Gold is almost liquid in Thailand. They have their own weights and measures. They use the baht measure. Now, the currency is the baht, but they also have a baht measure of gold. 1 baht of gold is like 15.224 grams, right? But it's 96.5%, so it's about less than a half ounce of actual gold, right? But gold it flows like honey there, let's say. It's not as liquid as water, but it is liquid, right? You can instantly change your gold they have more gold stores in Thailand than they have coffee shops, I'll tell you that. And a lot more than banks and coffee shops combined. Any little town you go into is going to have multiple gold stores. If you go in there with gold, you can get cash for it instantly. And so that's why Thais, Vietnamese, Indians, Chinese, they all know about gold. We've been brainwashed off of it into fiat, the ultimate trap, fiat, as they evaporate our money. You know who called me recently was G. Edward Griffin, right? He called me up because he wants me to come on something he's going to be doing in about a week, I guess. or 10 days. And I was like, is this really you?
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah, that guy is brilliant, man. And his book, Creature from Jekyll Island, what a book. And it's a book that everybody should read, obviously. And I think a lot of people that would be watching your programs will have read it.
I have a signed copy at home that he signed personally for me in the room of where the Federal Reserve was created.
Really?
Yeah, we had a conference.
Where did he come up with all this back then? You know what I mean? That guy, and you look at those old black and white videos. I was talking with him on the phone, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, and I was just like, you know, if you want to know what's happening today, you just take all your black and white videos and add drones. You know what I mean? I mean, kind of, you know, to summarize it, you know, I mean, because basically it's all happening. And so reading The Creature from Jekyll Island, I haven't read his book on the B vitamins for cancer and whatnot, but if he's so accurate on the other stuff, I've got to read the rest. I got to read that.
I've heard about it. I haven't got to it either. No, a fascinating man, and he's still out there. He's on podcasts, interviews. He's connected to all the right people. Like, is it Michael who did the big series on gold? Oh, great guy. Sorry, Maloney. Yeah, he was my entry door into the whole thing. His series on YouTube, and I saw it and I thought, whoa. And then I began to in the network, getting involved with financial people, and gold all the way.
He's an inspiration. What does he think about silver? I need to ask him. But you know, G. Edward Griffin. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, absolutely, yeah. I think, but he's positive in silver. Do you know his ratio of silver to gold? But he keeps adding to his positions on both.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Oh, I found a book last week or 10 days ago, I guess now, in Tokyo, and it had the gold-silver ratio in there. It was an 1861 book. And they were talking about, yeah, isn't that interesting?
Well, you know, I interviewed Nomi Prinz yesterday, and she actually brought up the fact. So the U.S. is now starting a strategic mineral reserve for battery metals, rare earths, things like that. I don't believe silver was in that, but it's interesting to see that the U.S. isn't one of the only countries that's doing this. Russia has also recently come out and said that they're building a strategic stockpile of many of these minerals and especially metals, and silver was on their list. You know, you look at the supply deficit in silver, it's humongous, and that fundamental case hasn't really mattered to the price of silver for a long time. But, you know, looking at this from an asymmetric standpoint, that risk to reward seems an amazing play.
Yeah.
But back to Nomi's point, when I interviewed her yesterday, she actually said that there is a possibility that central banks actually go from stocking gold and stacking gold to back their balance sheets to actually going into silver as well at some point.
Wow, that would be interesting. You know, I don't even know why I'm mentioning gold and silver when Doug Casey's sitting in the next room ready to fill the seat. I mean, that's like
that's the beauty of having.
That's like me talking about physics when Einstein's in the next room. Like, what am I talking about?
And this conversation, I've completely lost track of time, which I usually keep track of in the back of my mind because I do a lot of interviews. But at this stage, I don't know, maybe you are.
Well, Michael, I think just to kind of wrap up here, what's something that you'd like to leave our audiences with to think about, to consider?
All of our families have been through famines and pandemics and genocides. I mean, all of them, and wars, lots of them, and it's about to get real. It doesn't mean you're going to die. It means you need to get on your A game here, and human architecture is vital. Because nobody's going to get through this like Rambo. You know what I mean? You have to develop your familial network. That's why I'm so going jihad against the drugs. You know what I mean? Because one drug addict in your house, one alcoholic, one hardcore gambler, and it blows up your house. You know, and that's what they're doing. Trump is doing the Soros agenda. You know, I'm not going to ignore that so that I can have a euphoric moment, right? With the opium of the masses, Trump now, right? Well, Kamala was the opium of one mass, and now Trump is the other. And unfortunately, Trump is the opium of the masses of my family and friend structures. So they're really angry at me for saying these things. I get it. Thank you for not shooting at me. I appreciate it. But I'm just, you know how I just am like programmed to just Let it come out of my mind and out of my mouth. He is not our guy.
Michael, let us know where we can find more of your information, your Substack and your Twitter.
Substack at Michael Jan, and on Twitter it's Michael_Jan. Yep. And so I'm on Twitter almost daily, but as you can see, we stay a little busy.
Michael, thanks so much for your
Thanks,
time.
Tom.
Super.
Thanks, Michael.
Privilege, Michael.
Thank you, sir.
That'll do it, folks. Heavy stuff indeed. And again, one more mention, the link down below gets you a free consultation with the guys in Pure Gold UK. They have vaults all around the world. They service everyone's needs, and very important time. All of us believe in the worldwide macroeconomic and geopolitical kind of community that physical gold and silver are more important right now than ever before. So thank you.